This is Space Cat's Peace Turtles, the unofficial podcast for Fantasy Flight's Twilight Imperium. Episode 41, How to Win from Ahead. Music by Ben Prunty, featuring Matt Martens and Hunter Donaldson.
Just like crazy. It just feels really crazy.
We're so much further away from each other. I look at you now.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I mean, we looked at each other kind of before, but not
Yeah,
like
we should
this.
talk about that. We used to sit
adjacent.
You know what? Let's dunk on the way that we used to do this and how that's over.
Matt and Hunter were idiots.
We used to just like snuggle up next to the microphone.
One microphone.
And it was like we were like starving or like no, we were really cold.
We were sitting next to each other on the bus and decided to record a podcast together.
Yeah, it was like that, and we would look the same direction, but then eventually we would start looking at each other, but we're sitting right next to each other.
Which means we weren't talking into the microphone. We were just talking adjacent to the microphone. But here we are now talking into good
microphones. And you know what's funny is like we're making such a big deal out of this, and they're going to be like, I can't even tell.
I can't tell a difference.
I have no idea.
At all. It doesn't matter.
Maybe it does sound good. I don't know.
We
We don't even know. You know what? While you're listening to us, we don't even know how good this sounds coming out of your speakers. Maybe it's like music at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe by now it's like you're like, whoa, this is like a party. Yeah.
All right, let's get into some business.
It's a shame we already did that Smokey and the Bandit, or was it Smokey and the Mongoose?
Smokey and the Mongoose
bit, because that would have been a really
this
good
would have been
bit
good
for
timing
today.
for that.
Yeah,
but now we're not doing that. Today we're talking about other stuff. Last week we talked about how to win from behind, and this week we're continuing that discussion because there's more to say.
Right,
but it's from a different perspective. This week we want to talk about how to win when you're ahead, which
how to win when you have the most points in the game.
How do you win?
If you can imagine that, we're really going to help you today. It's really hard for people to figure out how to win when they have the most points.
Right. Well, the key is just keep having the most until you've done it.
Until the game is over.
No, actually, what's fun about Twilight Imperium is this is kind of a complex issue to have. This is one of the hardest things to do in Twilight Imperium.
Right, is to get an early lead and not get knocked down a peg. In TI3, I feel like we were almost religious in the way we would talk about it. It's loosened up a little bit, I feel like, in 4th edition. But in 3rd edition, we would talk about it like, no, it's all about being second place until the end. Like, always. Like, in first place, it felt like first place would always lose. Like, whoever was in first the whole time, they had no shot. They were like, it was a huge mistake to take
It's the same
lead.
problem as that game Munchkin, which is like, plenty of problems, but the biggest problem with Munchkin is like the first person to get to 9 points, you literally have like 2% chance of winning, because by the time you get to the 9 points, everyone's got all their best stuff. They're gonna stop you, and then the second person to get the 9 points is like,
the dumbest thing about that game is that like everybody's geared up to stop you. And then
they burn it all.
The next person comes up and is like, "Hey, I'm at level 9.
I win."
And anybody that doesn't play Munchkin has no idea what we're.
But it doesn't matter.
Right?
It's an understandable problem because it happens in TI too.
Right,
kind of.
right. It actually does. Yeah, your action card hand, like everyone using their action cards to stop so and so from doing something in the final round, only to have used all their action cards, and now the next person can just come along and easily just kind of skate into the victory.
Yeah,
that does happen.
So let's set up this conversation today of how to win from ahead. But let's start with just like, how did you even get to this point?
Yeah, how do you get like ahead so significantly in Twilight Imperium,
that it becomes a problem? Because we're not just talking about like we're all at 9, or like you're at 9 points and everyone else is at 8 points. You're ahead. Like, well, that's kind of a different beat that we're on.
We're kind of talking about that round 3 5-pointer kind of thing as well.
Yes.
Like you kind of just like the race started and you just kind of jumped right up there.
Right. Yeah. We're talking about that, and we're also going to talk about another aspect of like there's kind of the like way too early, and there's the you're still ahead too early. Because there's other games where it's just like the pack is always there and nobody gets ahead. We are really talking about having like a 2 or 3 point advantage over everyone else.
Yeah.
That's really the scenario we're trying to outline today.
It's the more common scenario.
So the first one is it's round 3 and it's just like, I'm way ahead. This is awesome.
Right.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
There's I think 3 or there's like 2 main ways you get way ahead by round 3. And the first is
Mechatol
you
point,
got
baby.
Mechatol. Yeah,
point.
that does a lot. If you round 2 took Mechatol, that's 1 point. If you got Imperial round 2 or 3, that's another point. So that's 2 points.
And then if you score the public objectives too, like
it's just very easy that if you have Mechatol, you're gonna probably fly ahead early. Like and a lot of boards can see that that's the thing, and they'll be like, well, okay, we're not going to read too much into it. But if you've been like scoring other objectives, like your secrets and stuff too, in addition to Mechatol, you might look very far ahead.
Right.
And I want to go ahead and preface this scenario with this is better than the alternative.
Right.
Hunter, what's the alternative way you could be way ahead at 3 rounds?
Well, you could not have taken Mechatol, and instead you just had a good secret objective hand, and you're just... That's it. You played them all.
You scored all your secrets. You've also scored most of the stage 1 objectives. Like, it's round 3, right? Okay, in round 3...
You have no objectives left to score, and you're in the lead.
Right.
So everybody's like, hey, this guy is a problem. And
you don't have anything else to do. You're kind of just sitting there with your, hand in your pockets because you're waiting for more points to hit the table.
Right.
And so...
Looking for swingers, hands in the pockets.
Either way... In either scenario, if you get early, if you get ahead this early, you need to be ready to get defensive. That's the biggest thing. You probably have been stretching yourself way too thin to get this early, because if you've been scoring a bunch of objectives, that means your stuff is probably kind of all over the place. And it's about time you backed up and focused on home a little bit, because in the second scenario, you have no more points to score anyways. You need to just make sure people don't gut you.
Right, because they will want to.
Yeah, and in the first scenario, in the Mechatol scenario, if you secure your pie slice, there may be not much anybody can do about you having that lead.
Right.
That's why that's why the Mechatol scenario is a lot safer, because it's kind of like if you then play defensively after taking Mechatol, you might keep that lead and you might be okay.
Right, but I do want to stress how important it is if this is happening to you, that you should probably camp down, on Mechatol.
Yeah. Don't just take Mechatol and then like walk away from Mechatol.
Of course not.
If you're going to get this kind of a lead.
Quick
off of
shout
Mechatol.
out to our friend EJ, who you can watch doing this exact thing we're talking about in the Holiday Spectacular stream, which was our first stream.
Yep.
And you can go watch that and see how that played out for him. Spoiler. It didn't go well.
It didn't. It didn't play out because you get a lot of steam, and then you kind of run out of that steam, and you've been a target, so nobody is ever willing to make any deals with you, and you fall out of like the actual running of the game. You stop playing Twilight Imperium, and you start playing like, how do I just sit here and try to accrue points by myself?
Which that's not a very good title for a game.
No.
Nobody wants to play
long.
How do I sit here and score points for myself game. That's not a fun game by Hasbro. Regardless of the two possible plans, if you're on round 3 and we're already a problem, I would say I really don't like when this happens to me.
Right.
Like if I'm really ahead this early in the game, it's a problem because you're gonna have to start thinking defensively in the mid game.
Right.
So that means that like you're generally maybe not gonna be able to swing out for these other objectives that you're gonna need.
Right.
So I would rather not be a threat to the table this early.
Yeah. So generally speaking, you should avoid taking huge leads by round 3. You just shouldn't do it. If we're going to talk more later about what to do if you do get into that situation, but just know up front, we kind of don't condone it. If you can avoid, you should. I'm not saying like don't score objectives
under any circumstance, but like it can happen. You can get in a situation where you're like, I know I got to score this now, and I'm going to have to be the leader in round 3.
Right.
We're not saying like at all costs avoid it.
Right.
Sometimes you're not going to be able to avoid it. You're going to have to be.
But if you
have
have other avenues of like, if you very quickly get get both faction technologies secret objective, you don't need to score it that early.
No.
You can bank that and you can hold on to it later. Yeah. Anything like that. 4 PDS on the board, if you're Jolnar and you start with 2, it's pretty quick to get 2 more. Well, don't claim that objective round 2 or 3.
2 is 2, and then after that's 3, and then 4 is actually the one after that. So, it's not that,
Thank you, Hunter.
2 plus 2 equals 5.
Yes, and if you have 5 PDSs.
And speaking of 5, round 5 is
we want to transition into another. That was beautiful and well executed. No, we do want to talk about.
This is a whole new world for us right now. We are literally like, we are starting over from square one. There are like arms. There are mechanical
just attached
arms
to my desk
with
and I have
microphones
to deal with
on
that.
them, and it's so amazing.
There's a robot helping me record this right now, and he's just like, here, let me hold this for you.
It's so insane.
So we want to talk about the other scenario that you might get ahead, and this is more likely, which is like a round 5-ish. I'm ahead.
Late game, like pull ahead.
So how did we get here?
Honestly, one thing that I don't think we have listed that I feel like factors into both an early and late game lead is actually your fellow players not
keeping up their end of the
really
bargain.
Doing too good.
Yeah, right. If you're just there is a scenario where like you're having a decent game and everyone else is just trash. Not trash players, but like having that horrible luck game where none of the objectives are in their favor.
It can totally happen.
And so that's kind of a different conversation than what we're really digging into. We want to talk a little bit more about. Let's give this scenario. You are the first one to score that very first stage 2 objective when no one else really could. You are sitting on Mechatol.
We see this a lot.
You have a home system with a decent amount of influence, and the first one out was spend 16 influence, and you just have it, and nobody else has it. Okay, you just gained a 2-point advantage on everyone else in round 5. That's kind of a big deal.
Going into the late game, that means you're probably, like, math-wise, you're in striking distance.
Yes.
You must be in striking distance of winning at that point.
Yeah, and this isn't a horrible situation to be in.
It's probably the best one.
Yeah, if you're scoring that first stage 2 and no one else is, things are probably okay for you. The other situation you could be in, though, is similar to the round 3 one. If you're in the lead at round 5, and it's because you scored all of your secret objectives already, you're probably running out of steam, or at least you're running out of abilities to surprise your opponents. Like you're running out of ways to just like, aha, gotcha. Like now everything you have is on the table.
Right, and everybody's going to start counting what you're doing, and you don't have any more hidden things to work with. You know what I mean? It's kind of a no swingers situation.
Right, yeah. If you've already swung, you can't swing again, baby.
Right.
And the last one is really the best case scenario, which is if you've gotten a few Imperial points, you're sitting comfortable, and I don't like. You're in a really great situation to probably win the game. If you've scored like 2 or 3 Imperial points by round 5, the big thing with Imperial points and the reason we like them so much is those are points no one can take away with you. You can't take away any points, but they also don't take away from everything else you've been doing.
Right. You still have lots of public objective options if you've been scoring Imperial points.
Right. You have lots of opportunities to get things done. When you score all of the public objectives, you run out of ways to do things. Suddenly, your only opportunity for more points are Imperial points.
Right.
And late game, nobody's going to let you have Imperial.
Right.
So what we're talking about is if you manage to get a bunch of Imperial points early before people really started to take advantage of it, you could have this huge lead and maybe be okay.
And I want to clarify, when we say huge lead, I mean that we're talking
3
about
points.
2 or 3.
Right.
Like,
not like a 6-point lead, because when someone has a 6-point lead, that's a whole other
That's a whole nother ballpark. But I mean, if you've been keeping up with public objectives and you throw in an Imperial point or 2, or God forbid 3, I think it would be pretty crazy if they let you get 3.
If anybody ever scored 3 Imperial points, that would be
you're
very
crazy.
Yeah. But the point to all of this setup is to say now you are public enemy number 1.
Yeah.
And that's the situation we want to talk about today. When you're public enemy number 1, how do you possibly win? Because that's the situation that is hard to be in. If you're a couple points ahead of everyone and you have access to more points maybe, or even if you don't, but everyone has looked at you and said, hey, Hunter's running away with it, and we have to stop him. The second you hear that sentence, we have to stop so-and-so, we're in trouble, and that's what we want to talk about today, of like how do you combat that? Because it's going to happen in lots of games, and I think some people are too easily dismiss it. It's just like you just shouldn't let that happen, and if you let that happen, you're screwed. There are ways to win while being public enemy number 1.
Right. I think the concept that is very important to understand is the idea of banking objectives.
Yes.
And what we mean by this is not exactly like just decide not to score something that you could score.
Right.
It's about the specifics of it is, let's say there are 2 public objectives I have available to myself. A control 4 tech specialty planets objective and a tech objective.
Yeah,
to have,
3 tech specialty planets or control 2 and 2 colors.
Right, 2 and 2 colors. I already have 2 and 2 colors. So what? Should I just like score that? Well, what if I could get the control one this round and then keep the tech one for later? Because once I become public enemy number 1, control objectives are going to get very difficult.
Yes, very difficult. And yeah, you need to prep for that. So in general, I think this is why I play as a super aggressive player,
right?
Because I'm trying to keep up with all the not easy stuff, but passive stuff to do. I'm trying to just like always be dropping some PDFs and always be getting tech, because later I want to be able to get those points that no one can take those away from me.
Right.
And I want to score the really hard objectives early, because if your only option late game is to score really hard objectives, well, the rest of the table, A, is going to see that, and B, going to be able to stop you.
Right.
Because multiple people trying to stop you from one really difficult objective puts the favor way in their court. Like, they are going to do so much better at that.
Right.
But if it's just like, you guys can't stop me, I already have 2 techs and 2 colors, and that's the only point I need, that's the way you're going to win the game.
Right.
So banking objectives is a big deal. And yeah, I think the important thing to know is, like you said, it's not just, some people talk about, is it important, should you just not score points?
Should I just not score any points because I'm trying to bank a bunch of objectives?
Right, I'm going to have an awesome round
like
4.
Like you're trying to create like an artificial swing round, and you don't even need to have a swing round.
Yeah, my big advice is absolutely not. You should score points if they are available to you, because it is worse to force yourself to stay behind, and then you might lose the opportunity to get those points later.
Right.
And then now you're just way behind and no more opportunities to get ahead.
Or the thing is, there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens with how many points you could score in a round. So if you take a round off, that might be what really destroys your game in the late game.
Right.
Because somebody might be able to sneak in front of you.
Yeah. I think this is the big point to solidify this is, I don't think you should ever hold off on scoring a public objective if you can score one.
Right.
Just period. You should always aim for the most difficult. Yeah, you should aim for the most difficult one. But if you can score any public one objective, you should score a public objective.
Yes.
Secrets, I get holding on to some secrets.
The passive ones.
The passive ones. Most people will point out action phase ones are the best ones to hold on to, and I agree with that. There's plenty of action phase secret objectives that I will hold on to, even if I just did, like, I blew up a flagship. If there's a bunch of other flagships on the board and it's a little bit too early in the game, I'll maybe not score that objective. Depends on how easy the other ones will be to take out. But the thing I want to make sure and point out is there are way more status phase secret objectives, and you're only going to have so many status phases.
Right.
So you need to make the judgment call of, am I going to be able to score this status phase secret objective later on?
Right.
If it's just a passive effect, sure. But what if later on you have another status phase secret? You can't score 2 in one status phase.
Right.
So you need to be very careful about banking status phase secret objectives. So I would say, generally speaking, I'm going to score it when I have the opportunity, even if it will give me an advantage, because I would rather have the lead and find a way to defend myself than just not take the lead and then lose the opportunity to get the lead. Again, this all comes down to what are the actual objectives available to you, and you should always look for passive ones, because passive ones, of course, you can wait and probably do it eventually.
All right.
It's whenever.
Yeah. Well, let's say you do have, you've done your homework. You have objectives banked. You're ahead and everyone hates you.
Right.
But you kind of see your path to make it through the end of this. What does that even mean? What are we doing? What are we going to focus on to make sure that we can make it through the end of the game, even though we're in the lead right now and everybody hates us?
Right. First and foremost, you've got to keep up your defenses.
Right. And what is the linchpin of that? Like, what's the gatekeeper, the doorman,
the doorman. It's your doorman. It's the infantry. You have to have infantry, and more importantly, you need to have been working on infantry all game.
Right.
We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but like, just never stop building infantry if you can
where
help
are
it.
those infantry? Are we going to put them everywhere on every planet?
I mean, it would be great to, but most specifically, be prepared to protect your home system. That's the only place people are going to really screw up your plans, is taking your home system and keeping you from claiming objectives. So you need to be dropping lots of people on your on your home system. So more importantly, if you've gotten way ahead and you don't have a bunch of infantry on your home system, on all the planets in your home system, it's time to make that like a priority. Spend one round spending all of your production value of your home system getting more infantry down.
Right.
Because you just need to pack those planets up. This is why it's so difficult to play as Hakan sometimes. Like, to get ahead as Hakan is very difficult because you have 3 planets you need to defend versus all the 1 planet home systems where it's just like, yeah, I drop
sack as many as you want, buddy.
Infantry, and that's 6 infantry on that 1 planet. I'm
Throw
good to
down.
go. So the other point too is have PDS. PDS help with this. If you can, as you go throughout the game, be getting some PDS, I think it's always useful because that's going to prevent some bombardment, and you're going to want that. This is all probably sounding somewhat obvious, but the real point I think that we're wanting to drive home is that your fleets are the least important part of this puzzle.
Right.
If you're going to get way ahead, your fleets, for defensive purposes, become not kind of trivial.
Because why do you even need to win the space battle if your infantry on your home planet is enough to get through? You know what I mean? Like if you've
and it's way cheaper to do that.
And you're looking at like, all right, so this fleet has this much bombardment, this many infantry they can get to my home system, and I've got way more than. I mean, I'm good. Like they're not going to get through it.
You can set yourself up to be just unstoppable if you put enough infantry down. Having a big fleet, 2 people could attack your home system. The first one will wipe out a big portion of the fleet, and then the second one will finish the job.
No fleet can basically get through the whole table going against you.
Right.
But when we're talking about just bombardment versus infantry, it's different. The math is a lot simpler.
Yep.
And it's a lot more difficult for people to team up with you because, like, essentially they're going to have to fight each other through space to even get to have that kind of wave after wave of bombardment.
Yeah. And honestly, the other big point is that your fleets are more important elsewhere.
Right.
They're
Especially
not
when
useful
you're playing
defensive. If you're in this position, that means you have a couple more objectives you need to just stretch out there and get, and that's what you need to use your fleets for. Drop infantry on your home system so that you can spend your fleets still getting those last couple objectives that you need to get.
Right.
That's what your fleets are for. Fleets are for aggression, infantry and planets are for defense.
Because they're such a cheap defense.
Right.
They're such a cheap, easy defense to mount. I see too often people turtling by building large fleets that are now, we're talking like round 5, round 6. It's like, this is almost the end of the game, and you're spending all this money on this fleet.
Yep.
You don't have warfare. This fleet is going to do nothing. You just spend a bunch of money, and this fleet is not going to help you score any objectives.
You've got to keep your fleets
get your
mobile.
stuff out there. Yeah. That like you can't just turn everything around and just be like, all right, well, we're all just going to sit here, because then how are you going to score that last point or two?
Right. So keep those fleets available. So let's talk about the scarier scenario.
Yeah.
Let's get into what if you just don't...
You're in the lead and you don't have anything else you can score.
You spent it all. You scored all the things, and you're kind of just waiting on more objectives to come out. You're just hoping, I've been sitting on 2 tech in every color, but that objective still hasn't come out. And if that one comes out, I'll win the game. But everything else, I don't know what to do.
Well, I mean, I think you're kind of covering it, which is that as the game goes on, there's less randomness to like what you might see come out.
Right.
And I mean, I don't want to freak anybody out, but like think about what secret objectives have been scored, which ones are still available. Yes. Grab new secret objectives. Maybe even be prepared to cycle out the secret objective that you have.
Right. That's a big thing.
Another one.
That's a big thing. I had a game recently where I had a secret objective that I could score. It was a little bit tricky, but it's like, I could definitely do this in a round. I just kind of had to focus my whole round on that.
Right.
But based on what I was seeing already on the board, I was like, I know that there are some secret objectives still in that deck that like I could just automatically already qualify for.
Right.
So Imperial late game, even as doing the secondary, getting more secret objectives, cycle that hand of secret objectives, because one of the things you're going to look for when you're running out of objectives to score is some secrets that are going to come very, very easily.
Right.
Because you're running out of space to stretch yourself out. You're probably already stretched thin, or you're spending way too much time just defending your home system. So you need some easy secret objectives.
Right. And how yummy would it be to how yummy would it be to like start focusing on defense, plop down some more PDS, and then at the very end, you get to score that 4 PDS secret objective.
Exactly.
And it's just like, wow, this just
you're
sang
kind of
to
hoping.
me.
And so the same thing goes too for public objectives. You don't have as much control over this, but you need to be very mindful of what public objectives could come out, and you kind of just need to start gearing for those. You are rolling the dice at this point. If you've already spent all the objectives you can get, and you're just waiting for more to come out, you need to get ahead of the game and just hope you get it right.
Right.
To a certain extent. I'm not saying spend everything you've got to get 5 tech planets before the tech planet objective has come out, but have a pathway to get those. Get your fleets in position to where if that one came out, you could very quickly jump on them. Because if all of your stuff isn't in position, it'll be too late when it does come out.
Right.
And the same thing goes for 2 tech in every color. Like, keep getting tech, keep getting all of the stuff that helps you score those late game points, because the best thing that could happen to you is, finally the stage 2 that I needed comes out, and you guys can't do enough to stop me because I've just been waiting. So with that waiting comes double emphasis on you need to defend.
Right.
And in some cases, it's in lieu of maybe other points that you could potentially get. If you're so far ahead that like everyone is really pointing their fingers at you, you need to make sure your stuff is ready to hold on. Mm-hmm. This is why SAR is so hard late game, because SAR is very easy to stop and get ahead of when they get too far in the lead victory points wise. Other people can just like outfleet them and ground force them. So,
and also I feel like there's an interesting thing that happens with SAR in that they sort of enable their neighbors to also score certain points.
Right, you open up, you usually have a pretty open pie slice that other people are going to start dipping into and taking advantage of.
Right.
So you're losing those control objective things all game long.
Which, speaking of losing, I feel like if you're in the lead and you're in this situation where you don't know where to go, you should probably be prepared to lose some ground somewhere. Right. And it's just got to be the right spot.
You need to strategically plan out which ground you're willing to lose and leave that as the vulnerable area.
I see too many people that are literally looking at, like, basically facing down the whole rest of the table, and they really are honestly trying to protect their whole slice. Yeah. When it's like, if you're in this position and you're ahead and no one has a good reason to like basically be your friend, maybe you got to lose Lodor. Like,
exactly.
Like, don't lose your whole fleet fighting for a planet that you might not need at all.
Right. Be prepared to just pull back a little bit and consolidate your forces so that they would rather take the easy planets to take than take out your whole fleet. Because again, you want to keep that fleet around so that you can claim the objectives that do come up.
Too many games I see people in the late game ahead and they lose it just because they risk their whole fleet over something they did not have to, and now they just don't have the movability in the end for if another objective comes out, they're just not going to be able to score it. Right. So don't lose your fleet.
Yeah.
Do not lose your fleet in the end game.
If it sounds like we're suggesting like too many things at once, it's like it feels like we're kind of saying
don't lose
impossible.
anything.
Yeah, don't lose anything. It's like, well, yeah, obviously, but the point is, know what you can afford to lose.
Right.
Because you should kind of plan to lose that. Like if you get that far ahead, you probably deserve to get knocked down a peg.
Right.
And you need to just make sure that that where you get knocked down is where you can afford to lose that.
I mean, honestly, I feel like the cliff notes of this point, like any newer players, what I feel like I want you to get out of what we've been talking about for the last like 5 minutes is essentially like my boys, my infantry, they protect me.
Yes.
My fleets are to keep my options open.
Right.
And that's how it is.
Yeah,
really.
It's that simple.
I mean, there are some exceptions.
Sure.
You did bring up Hakan and the fact that they have 3 planets in their home system. Like it is.
You need better defenses than that. Yeah. You need to do a little bit more work, but especially any one planet home system faction is like get the infantry down and then prepare those fleets to strike out and do the
just
important
throw those
work.
down. Don't worry about like too many space battles over the home system where it's like, well, they were going to lose this, and I'm not even sure what the point of it was.
Right.
Right.
So a lot of this is probably to veterans. Maybe some of this is pretty obvious. And so we want to get into maybe the less obvious stuff. We've been talking about just like the straight up and down strategic objective stuff, but let's talk about like how the table is currently treating you and the meta game against, hey, let's all hate so-and-so. Like what do you just do as a player when you get all the fingers pointed at you?
Well, basically when you have the heat of the table of somebody being like, hey, you're in the lead right now, whether it's 3rd round, 5th round, whatever, you're in the lead and you're public enemy number 1, and we are all against you right now.
So on top of all of the things we've just said, which is like what's happening inside your head, all of the objective planning you're doing, what you need to be putting out there is a very different sort of operation.
Twilight Imperium is not the type of game where you can just like, oh, everyone's against me, well, I can just power through this.
Right. No. You need to play the meta game.
It's political enough to where you cannot do that.
Right. So how do we get the meta off our back?
Well, I mean, I think we really got to call out if you're doing well, hopefully you're not the only one doing. Hopefully you're not like, I'm at 7 points and everyone else has 2. Like, maybe in that case you might be able to just like cakewalk your way, moonwalk your way into that 10 points. But like most of the time, that's not going to be the case. There is a second place person. And you need to get as much heat on them as possible. Do their public objective math. Make that obvious to everyone. What they can score, what they might be able to
sell them
score.
Down the river.
Like you are, there's so much heat on you, and the best thing you can do is basically make it look like you can't score any more than oh man, I just happened to luck into this. Oh, I have no idea how I got all these points. I'm just a simple
I'm an
little
idiot.
man.
How could I possibly
I have no
blockade
idea.
a home system? I don't know how to do that.
What does blockade mean? I don't know.
Can someone hand me the rule book? I
don't know
need to
any
look
of the
some things
rules
up.
of the game anymore. And so's a genius. He's got this all figured out.
He's trying to pin you all against me because he knows how to get his win. So yeah, it's making someone else look better than you and make yourself look a little weak. Now, again, these are kind of obvious. So let's dip into the even more tricky, fun stuff that you can do, and that's what do you do with the other 4 players? Everyone's pointing a finger at you. You're pointing your finger at second place. What about the other 4 people? What do you need to start doing with them?
Well, so what I like to do in general in any game of Twilight Imperium, as far as meta, as far as table goes, is I try and keep I don't like herds. I don't like it when the table
pack mentality
is like the UN. I don't like that at all. So I try and break the herd up and make sure that all of my relationships on the table are very one-on-one.
You like to talk about making eye contact with someone.
So I look at my neighbors
someone.
a lot, and I try and create relationships with my neighbors that are mutually beneficial, that they are not going to want to break, which means that if I get in the lead, they're going to be like, well, I don't know.
I'm benefiting so much from them.
This is why I love playing Hakan, because it's very easy to create that relationship. With other factions, it can be more difficult, but you can still do it.
But even from maybe it's not a relationship you've already set up, but just now you're in this position. Okay, well, let's get person in last place on my side.
Or even second place. Sometimes you can do it with the second leader, basically.
In general, it's starting to butter that person up really good. Start offering them stuff. Anything you can afford to lose, get it to them, because it's going to have 2 purposes. One, if it is that person who's like in a decent scoring position, you can give them enough to where they start to look like the target. Or you can just get one less person attacking you. Ideally, like let's say, I'm sitting here and the person to my left is in like second to last place or last place. That's the person I want to start buttering up because A, that protects my left flank and just keeps one person from invading my stuff, and it gets them to put pressure elsewhere on the board. We're going to be cool now, and you're going to keep at least one of these 4 players off of my back.
And the best way to do this mechanically within the ideas of the game is support for the throne. Basically. It's designed in this way.
This is something Hunter and I forgot to kind of touch on last week, and it was important to last week's discussion, and it's especially important now, which is we've finally come up with the good rationale for why we don't like giving out support for the throne round 1. And we have kind of said it before. We've kind of categorized it as like a bargaining chip that I don't want to lose. But I think more we've said I don't want to be limited by the fact that someone else has my support for throne and I can't activate their system. Well, it's bigger than that. It's that I need support for the throne when the going gets tough. That's when I most need those tools. And that's why I don't like giving them out when things are easy. When things are easy, I can make other relationships with people. I can keep things, I can have a courtesy with my neighbor, and it doesn't require giving a support for the throne because I need that support for the throne when I'm in the lead and I need to get somebody off my back.
If you've already given out your support for the throne, if you're in this situation that we're describing right now, that's just one less bargaining chip you have, and you can't use that now against other players. You can't use it to make the negotiations more complicated. You can't use it to break the herd. I mean, that's probably the most obvious way to break could break up the herd.
If you give your support for the throne to the person in second place and it makes them like tie you or something, talk about a herd breaker. Like,
right. Talk about a herd breaker.
You really have just left the table with not that many reasons to keep targeting you.
Right.
It's like, no, we're both at 8. What are you talking about? You
completely disrupted the whole conversation. And hopefully you did it with some sort of, great plan in mind as for how you're going to get, like if I've got, initiative on them.
Right.
Basically.
Now I'm going to get into their territory to get that
this.
control objective, and now they have to consider, are they really going to take away that control objective from me, or are they going to let me have that point because they think they can race me for the victory point?
Right.
So the other thing, too, here is just straight up, like, start offering your services to other players. Just help someone score an objective.
Right.
Maybe it's one round where, like, we don't want to say don't score a round, but start boosting other people up. Get the other people to catch up to you so that lead isn't so apparent. You're still looking for your out. You're looking for your way to win. But while you're doing that, you're getting a little bit of the heat off of you by making it, a 1 or 2 point game as opposed to a 3 or 4 point game.
Almost like that. I feel like there's a place where if you can make a swing round happen for another player, I think the most obvious example I can think of is, now this is super hypothetical and please don't get annoyed at me, but let's say one of the lower VP people. What am I saying? So in lower place, in like 3rd or 4th or 5th place, they have Imperial, which I feel like is possible.
Sure,
they're going to try.
They
and
blocked it from you. They had to do that.
Let's say you've had Mechatol. That's how you got here, but you're realizing like at this point, I'm never going to get Imperial again.
Yep.
And in fact, Imperial is a low initiative, so like in the end,
you want to score earlier in the status phase.
I can totally see someone being like, you know what? Take Mechatol. I'm just going to give it to you for free. Get that Mechatol point. It'll bring somebody else up into the pack. Now the whole herd mentality is getting messed up because there's too many people scoring too many points. And it's freaking everybody out.
Let's say you have an extra player who's having one of those games where it's like, oh, their pie slice is so well defended, but they just haven't been scoring any objectives because they haven't branched out enough.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's time to like offer a little bit, like, hey, why don't you just take this planet, take my Mechatol, or take my whatever, to take my Lodor and get your stuff over there, because that's going to help you a lot.
Right.
Even though it's not going to hurt you that much, and sure, it will help them a lot, but it's not going to help them enough to secure a victory.
Right. There's this thing that I feel like kind of happens when you're in that like 7 point, 8 point kind of area where everything just kind of becomes a scramble. You don't have to like hold on to everything like begrudgingly. Like you only need a few more points, and you kind of just need to become like a one-track minded person of like, how do I poker face all of the other people at the table? How do I throw off their balance so that I can sneak out, grab this one VP, and be done with it?
We've talked about this a lot in other kind of contexts, but like the idea that you can win with almost nothing
at the end,
is a big factor. So as long as you can see a path to victory, that's all you need. That's all you need to do is like keep those things. I mean, the worst case scenario is like it's spend 16 resources and that's every planet that you have, right? We've all seen that end game where it's like, if we take that planet away from them, they won't have enough resources to score the 16.
Right.
Like, of course you want to avoid those situations, but there's a lot of other situations where it's just key planets that you need to keep, and everything else you can't afford to lose because it's late enough in the game that you don't need that much more money. You just need to get those points scored.
Well, and a lot of times in a 10-point game, I feel like you only really ever have to score one stage 2. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you get that first one down.
If you got Imperial points, then that's definitely the case.
Right.
You definitely have enough room to do that.
And I'm almost at a point where we need to start playing 14-point.
I agree.
I know this is kind of a sidebar at this point, but like I am starting to feel that there's a lot of stage 2s that I feel like we just don't ever really score in our group because they're
we're just not
like,
seeing them.
They're too hard, and like we don't have time to even do that.
Right. I wish we played faster. That's the only thing holding us back from 14-point games is we are still.
It's still a 6.
Matt Martens is a little bit of a slow player. Sorry.
Yeah. Analysis paralysis, Matt.
Yep. The last thing, and I kind of mentioned it with like talking about the player to my left. Your neighbors, like your actual seating order neighbors, are the most important people in this phase of the game.
Dude, that's true even outside of this discussion.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
You should
For
always
the whole
really
game,
look at your neighbors.
Yeah.
And like,
you need to know what they're capable of, and you need to know when it's time to get sweet with them, because end of the game, they're the ones who are going to get into your home system.
Right.
Most other players are not going to be able to attack your home system.
Right.
But if you've got one player that you've got good terms with, they are really going to strongly consider whether or not they want to attack your home system, and it's going to help you a lot. So those are the people you need to be making the most deals with.
I agree. And I mean, those are the people that if the herd is saying like we really got to get so and they're kind of on your side or they have a reason. I had a game where I was extra and Alex was next to me as Mentak. You can watch this game. I think it's still the most recent stream we've done. We haven't done a stream in a while.
Yeah. Yep.
And we had kind of gotten in bed together as far as like promissory notes and such. And it kind of became a factor in the end of like when people were trying to turn on me, like Alex was kind of really looking at it like I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that and also accomplish my objectives because we had just been so, it's almost like, it's not that in the end of the game, Alex looked at me and was like, I won't betray my friend.
No.
It's that we had been so easygoing for so long that the window where he could have stopped me without him knowing had already closed. Yes. It was already too late.
Right.
Basically.
And also, like, sometimes you sacrifice a lot of your own wealth and like, advantages by betraying your neighbor. Like, that is sometimes a hard trigger to pull.
I remember what it was. It's that he had given me promise of protection as Mentak.
Yeah.
He had mirror computing.
Really afraid of losing that.
And I was extra in a game where there were no other 4 commodity races.
Yeah.
So I was kind of playing like a light Hakan, like defensive.
You were
Hakan
giving him
kind
a
of thing.
lot of money.
And I was giving him a lot of money. That was the idea, is that I was going to keep him happy. While I had promise of protection and could still generate a lot of cash myself.
You know what else was important? If I remember right, and maybe I'm totally wrong, but the point will still stand. I think he was sitting to your right.
He was.
And that is a big deal.
Right.
If we're going to really make a priority list of like who you need to be best friends with, the person sitting immediately to your right is the biggest one because they're the ones sitting in front of you in speaker order.
Yep.
And you might be able to, in some situations, convince them to let you get strategy cards that you need.
Right.
So if you can get the person ahead of you in speaker order on your side, that is about as good of a relationship on the table as you can possibly have. There are some, I know Blarknob harps on this, that there are people who talk about like the relationship with sitting left to right with anybody at the table is like the number one dynamic of the game that you should find a way to get in control of.
For sure.
And I think that's a part of the meta that I haven't even explored enough myself. I don't think about it actively enough during games, but when I do start to notice it, it is like a huge deal. So be very aware of who's sitting to your right and how you can get them to ease off of you a little bit.
Right.
Entice them with your wares and see what they're willing to give up. So let's say we're kind of working. All of this is working. We see our path to victory. We've got the meta off of us a little bit. I think something we keep pointing out here is being defensive. And I don't know if we've clearly enough defined, like, what does it mean to, like, really switch into defensive mode?
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, you will have to do that. There's just going to become a round. Usually it is, like, the final round where everyone's like, oh, we just counted it up. They're going to win. Right. So what do we do in this round 7? We just realized Matt is definitely going to win unless we take his home system.
I mean, it's kind of the thing. I feel like the main point we really want to make here is that you sort of every game have to be prepared for this.
Right.
This is always a possibility.
Yes.
Sometimes you have those games where you win and nobody even noticed that you were going to win.
Those are great. That's a Yasarl victory kind of thing.
And that's fun. But a lot of times people are going to notice that you've got the game.
Yep.
So what that means is that you need to be preparing for that the entire game.
Right. And that's what we were kind of saying earlier. I think the biggest thing is always play as though at some point you're going to become public enemy. Just have that on your mind.
Right.
You're going to be public enemy number 1 at some point, because that's kind of as much as people like to say, like, if I don't ever take leads because then I can't control the meta. Well, hopefully you can, and you should plan for it, because it is better to have a plan to work against that problem than it is to just be like, I just don't let that happen because I couldn't.
Right, and then how are you going to win? Like,
right.
You can't just like win by staying in the herd the whole time. You do have to score the most points.
You're just assuming you're going to have a swing round, and you can't make that assumption.
Right.
You or at least you can't. You're assuming you're going to have a swing round in the round that wins you the game, and that is a great thing to have happen. But more often than not, you're going to need to go ahead and take that swing round, and it's going to leave you at 8 or 9 points.
Well, as you gain more points, the game gets less and less random.
Right.
I mean, like everyone experiences this.
Right.
This is the thing. Like, it goes from being lots of chaos to, like, in the end, you can look at other players and be like, oh, that's how they're going to win. Right there.
Right. So obviously the big factors here. Okay, it's turtle time. We talk about, like, certain factions that can do this really well. Like Arborek can just on a dime, like, all right, I'm dropping 10 ground forces on my home system.
Yeah.
There are those plays, but we want you to think more about all game long, what should you be doing to make sure you'll be able to hold on at the end. And this is like every time you have some bonus capacity, you have like an extra $1 and some extra capacity, build some infantry.
I do it with Sarween a lot.
Yeah.
I'll kind of let Sarween just be like the infantry tech.
Right. I try to make a point to nowadays. I didn't do this at first, but I've noticed it. I think it helps me a lot more with every single build action, no matter what. I put 2 infantry into the budget.
Yeah.
And then I let the rest of my production capacity be whatever I can fit. I don't like to do anymore like, okay, I have 8 resources and I have 5 capacity. Well, 8 resources, I'm just going to build 2 dreadnoughts because 2 dreadnoughts are good. I like to think of it as I have 8 resources. One of those resources is 2 infantry.
Already.
So I had 5 capacity. What I actually have is 7 resources and 3 capacity.
Right.
And that's what I need to make work because those 2 infantry are a given every single time I build.
Right.
That way, if I do that every single time I build on every space dock, I will have enough infantry throughout the board that I can hold on at the end of the game.
Yeah, I feel like the other thing that we need, and it's not necessarily about, it's not about the shooty bits, it's not about the space cannon, it's about planetary shield.
Yep.
You got to at some point throw a PDS down. If you're thinking like, well, the only thing that's going to stop me is like somebody invading my home system, well, then planetary shield is a very good way to make that math really simple.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, if you can stop 3 or 4 dreadnoughts with plasma scoring from bombarding your home system and turn it into just straight up and down ground forces versus ground forces, you can make it very easy for people to see, oh, we can't do anything.
Right.
We literally can't do anything
If you throw even
them.
a single PDS down on your home system at some point, you've eliminated so many factions really from even being able to deal with your stuff.
And the same thing goes for if your strategy is relying on Mechatol Rex or any like incredibly key planet, that planet should have a PDS on it because you need to have a lot of ground forces and a PDS just as the kind of safe haven. I don't think of... At one point we were going to do, we recorded a video about like good PDS networks and we never released it because I don't know, whatever. The point...
It didn't
flow well.
Yeah.
But the point of the video was it is always better to spread out your PDS rather than to just drop
them all.
Like, okay, it's cool to fire like 6 shots at one fleet. That is cool, but most factions are not going to have enough time to drop that many PDS. So you really have to think about PD. I typically think of PDS as like, I'm probably going to get 2 a game.
Yeah.
And in addition to whatever I start with, I'm going to maybe have a chance to get 2 more.
Right.
And so with those 2, I need to think about what planets they really need to be on.
Right.
And so even with Deep Space Cannon, and you can have really a lot of fun coming up with like, ooh, how is my network going to be shaped because I have Deep Space Cannon and where are all those things going to touch? The big important thing is like, you just need to have a PDS on the important planets. And it really is as simple as that.
Right. Rules question real quick.
Yeah.
Planetary shield doesn't apply. Like if I have a planetary shield on a 2-planet system,
only the planet
that it's on, of course.
So home system, you need a PDS on every single planet in that system.
That's why Hakan can be kind of troublesome.
Yeah, that's why Hakan has difficulty winning from ahead. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about some factions, faction-specific stuff. We're kind of wrapping up this whole conversation, and we wanted to do that by saying, who are our... I kept saying bunker busters.
Bunker busters.
Yeah. Who are the people that we are really afraid of? Because if our only hope is holding on to what we've got and just surviving to the end, who is best equipped to come in and like completely screw up that plan?
I think we've called them uprooters before.
Yeah,
that type of thing. I mean, it's just like if you're listening to everything that we've described, I mean, there are some faction combinations that are particularly fearsome. The most obvious one I feel like is the Barony flagship. Lots of bombardment, cancels planetary shield.
Yeah. Honestly, that is the biggest one. That's the scariest.
That's your
thing
biggest bunker buster, because I mean that's all it does is bust bunkers.
He bumps booksters.
Busters.
Yeah,
Busters bunkers.
I would also be afraid of L1Z1X War Sons, although these are certainly easier to deal with. I don't know. It's because I recently had a game where I played as L1Z1X, and
you lost them both.
I built 2 War Sons and never got to use them.
Well, you messed up.
But I didn't mess up.
It's your fault.
Okay.
It's your fault.
Stop it. But no, L1Z1X War Sons are truly devastating.
Harrow is going to just like
melt you. So you need to do what the player in that game did against me. Just snipe it. You need to get out. And the same thing with the Barony flagship and with all these things we're about to describe is like you need to get ahead of it.
Right.
You need to keep the busters from coming to your home system.
Yeah,
because,
the busters from bunkers.
The other one is the Soul flagship. Hunter, right. You were the one who wanted to bring this one up because
I wanted to bring it up because I think in a Soul game, any good Soul player is going to be building up a lot of infantry on at least one planet, probably Mechatol, maybe their home system, maybe both.
Right.
If I'm playing a Soul and I realize that somebody's ahead of me and that the only way that I'm going to be able to win is to uproot them from their home system, you better believe I can take that really high capacity flagship and just bring those dudes in.
You can bring 20 ground forces with a carrier and your flagship.
They're
like
the only ones too when I'm playing against them that it's hard to do the math of how many infantry I need on a planet, because it's like they're the only ones who could. What the best thing about planets is that you can have as many infantry on them as you want. There's literally no limit.
The worst thing about planets is that the Federation of Sol can have as many ground forces on a planet as they want.
Right. So with capacity-wise, they're the only ones that could feasibly bring enough that it's like, wow. And they've probably built more infantry than you. So
because they've been dropping them for free,
basically. They've been dropping them all the time. So depending on like where they're located spatially, like that could be an issue. That could be something where it's like, I'll never build enough, basically.
Right. And the last one is the Nalu flagship, just because it's kind of specifically designed for certain makeups of fleets and defenses. I mean, if you have Graviton, you can kind of stop a Nalu flagship. So it is a lesser effect as these other three, but that Nalu flagship, if it brings a bunch of fighters with it, it could take out any home system planet.
And really just like War Suns in general in various situations are like...
Anyone with a War Sun is a threat.
Right.
Lizix is the big threat, but anyone with a War Sun, that goes through your planetary defense, that bombards, honestly, 4 on a 3, because you almost always have plasma scoring with War Suns. So it's going to do a lot of damage to what you've got on that planet.
Right, but I mean, as we all know, there's not as much War Suns out there anymore.
They're not very
it's a little bit different.
Good. Even though they're really great units, they're not very good at being in the board game.
Yeah. I kind of want to do, I mean, someday I want to talk about, like how the War Sun versus infantry economy has really changed a lot with TI4.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we will probably talk about in the future. I'd really like to.
Yeah.
God, has this been sounding good or what?
I don't even know. I'll say this much. Because it sounds good to me right now with these headphones in my ears, I've not been goofing as much.
No, it feels like this project has gotten really serious.
This is a serious radio show where we discuss serious matters and talk serious TI strategy.
Yeah.
I hope you haven't had any fun today and you've only learned.
I hope you make sure to not have fun when you listen to this show.
Right.
And I feel like I said it early on in the show that it wasn't going to be a
fun show. It's
always
been Hunter's priority.
My priority has always been to make sure that this is not a fun hour of your Tuesday.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I want it to be, I want you to have your,
you guys homework.
You guys have had your workbooks out, right?
Yeah, right. You mean to be taking notes.
Wait. You guys did you guys all get your workbooks? Did
you buy the official Space Cats Peace Turtles workbook available now for
You guys bet.
$14.99?
Oh my God. If you guys tell me that you haven't been using your workbooks, I'm going to be really
Get
upset.
out of my class.
First,
get out.
The first page is you have to draw a cat.
It's a very fun workbook.
Yeah, it's a fun workbook. Page 1, draw a cat. Page 2, draw a turtle from memory.
All right. Well,
we're done.
We're done. We're gonna go.
You won from ahead.
You won from it. Hopefully, with these tools, you are now able to win by having the most victory points.
You'll be in the lead of the horse race, and you'll win. And it won't. No dark horses in this one.
No dark horses.
No dark horse in this race. Just winners that win, and they win from winning. That'd be a good title for this episode. How to win from winning. Pop goes the weasel. Welcome to Space Cats Peace Turtles Errata. I've never been able to do that before. We got pop filters, and I'm popping on into your brain right now. Man,
it's just loud and not terrible.
I want to ruin those car speakers, baby. You taking a shower? I hope you throw the speakers in with you.
I ruined an external speaker by...
Did you really?
Yeah, it said it was waterproof, so I would put it in the shower, and it turned out it was just water resistant. I don't know. It stopped working.
That's not water anything, you know? That's just, hey, that'd be cool if you sold a product that like, this product is destroyed by water.
That's its selling point?
Yeah, it's like, this is like everything else. Water wrecks it.
Yeah.
All right, so this is some errata from last week's episode, Win from You're Behind, or Win from Behind. You're behind, now win. First one is from Jimbo V. That's always what we call him, but I don't know if is that his name?
That's the name. Call him? That's his name on other things.
Jimbo V from Reddit, Twilight Imperium. Is it worth holding off scoring a secret objective early in the game so that you do not appear too strong? My general philosophy of scoring as many points as early as I can has served me fairly well. But I have to wonder whether I could have avoided some unwanted attention during the agenda phase if I learned to pull my secret objective punches in the first 3 rounds. Now, this errata kind of inspired the whole episode.
Yeah, honestly, there's multiple. You're going to notice this is a trend with all this errata, and so we're not going to harp too long on many of these points, but a lot of what you guys and gals asked us in the errata is kind of like we decided we needed to talk about this whole subject because
it just became an episode.
Yeah, basically. It became an episode. So this first one is something I think we brought up, which is just score the ones that kind of make sense to score.
Right.
I cannot bring myself to say don't score a point if you can score a point. Mm-hmm. Only score points that if it's between 2, score the easier one. But I would never just straight up not score a point that I have available unless, like I said, it's like an action phase secret objective that I'll be able to definitely do later.
Right.
But even some of those
timing window that you're going to be blocked on.
I'll say this much: don't be deceived by bombard the last ground force on a planet. I'll do that one every single time
because
I so often have bad luck with that roll.
That one's hard to do.
So you really got to pay attention to what the objective is, and then judge whether it's worth holding off on. And I'm gonna say a majority of the time, no, go ahead and score it and just figure out how to hold on later. I would rather get ahead and hold on than have given up points willy-nilly throughout the game and then not be able to have the swing round that I need later on.
I think that's one of the core points of this entire episode that I really want people to click into.
I think we're going to get some flack for that, too, because I think it's not that we're saying definitely get way ahead. If you can keep yourself from being... I have foregone Imperial points before so that I don't get too far of a lead, but the only reason I didn't take those Imperial points is because I had plenty of other objectives to score.
Right.
I had a decent hand of secret. I was taking Imperial, or not, I was taking Imperial off of Mechatol, or if I'm on Mechatol, I'm doing the secondary of Imperial. I'm letting other people get it so that I can get secret objectives. I'm keeping my options open and remaining in the pack.
Right. If your attitude is to win more,
right,
then you might just mess yourself up.
Right. So I think there is a certain amount of keep the unwanted attention off of you, but you certainly shouldn't just straight up not score points.
And also, special shout out to Jimbo V for being a space kitty, because Jimbo V is a space kitty
Space
now.
kitty.
Meow.
TI4 is a virtue had this to say: one factor left out of the episode was that leadership is almost as good for endgame swinging as Imperial. The extra command counters are key to prolonging your turn and swinging hard. Plus, leadership equals you swing score first.
This is something I mess up a lot. I feel like I don't take I don't take leadership enough in the late game.
Yeah.
And too many times I've realized I could have taken that and then I would have been first in initiative and then I would have won.
Right. This is why
totally happened
in recent weeks or months I've gotten way more into influence, because I think the key here, I mean, leadership is a big part of it, but just having command counters is a huge part of it, which is you need those command counters to be able to do those last second maneuvers.
Right.
You need to be able to take actions, and if you don't have command counters, you don't take any actions. That's it. It's as simple as that. And so taking leadership in the end can give you that swing, and like they say, maybe you're not going to get Imperial ever again in the last 2 or 3 rounds because you're too far in the lead, but they might let you get leadership, and that means you're scoring first in the status phase, so you still have pretty good chances of winning. The same goes for even outside of leadership, just obviously, this is why diplomacy is a strategy card.
Right.
Nothing is better at locking down your home system than just locking it down with diplomacy.
Right.
And also, you go second in
initiative
order. So you're going to score immediately after leadership.
Right.
So those are big factors in that late game push.
Random complaint, though. I kind of wish that diplomacy was first in initiative
order.
I agree. Because it's just not very good.
Yeah.
really in general.
Because it's just a bad strategy
So, like,
card.
it might as well just be first, and then it has that going
Yeah,
for
I
it.
feel like leadership is a holdover from when it was just called initiative, and it completely operated differently, and then they turned it into leadership. But yeah, I don't know why the command counter thing is first.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyways. just some random musings. Next one is from Venerable Zendog. Yo, woof, woof, bark, bark. I've come to believe... That was it. That was the whole woof, woof. That's all he said.
That's all he said. He's a dog. What did you expect?
I've come to believe that it is imperative to not score all of your secret objectives before the final round. Once you have scored all 3, then your board position and likely strategy becomes very clear to your enemies. Having a secret unscored, but in hand, keeps them guessing and gives you room to act like you can't win. Now, this very much influenced our episode. Obviously, you can hear that we literally talked about this problem.
Yeah, I think... you are right. What sucks about all these things is we're kind of arguing against them, but I do agree with all of them. But I just think of it as if you can allow that to happen, that's great, but I'm not going to force that to happen. But it's certainly no doubt that like secret objectives are the easiest way to surprise people with a victory. That's their whole purpose. They're a secret objective. It's secret. That's what they're there for. And so I agree you should try to have like one in that last round, but I take this point more to mean keep drawing secret objectives rather than don't score one so that you have one in the end. It's just about make sure you're getting secret objectives. Making sure you have 3. The worst thing you can have is like you scored your first secret objective, you never drew another one, and now you're out of points to score. Well, you did that to yourself. You didn't get more secret objectives.
Right.
Always be drawing secret objectives if you can afford it.
I think this is kind of just like a willy-nilly, like, we're actually not really, we don't really feel that differently from Zendog.
No.
I feel like the only word in it that I disagree with is imperative.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just,
there's some wiggle
to us,
room
it's
there.
not imperative. It is like, sometimes you gotta.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta score.
You just gotta score that
like,
point.
That's the only
I'm
way
blockading that home system right now.
It's gotta happen now.
I have to do it now.
Right.
It sucks to put me that far ahead, but it's the timing.
But I can't just I can't just take the chance that I'm gonna get, because the secret objectives in general are wildly different from difficulty.
Right.
Like even more so than the public objectives.
Yeah. And in some games, you can't even assume you're going to make it to next status phase. I mean, I've been in games where it's like, if I hadn't scored my secret objective last status phase, I wouldn't have realized that, oh, actually, Hunter also has a path to victory, and because of the strategy card he picked, he could beat me there suddenly, and I just wasn't prepared for that, and now I'm just sitting on a secret objective that I could have scored last round, and now I'm waiting to score it, but he's going to beat me to it.
Right.
That I just hate leaving myself open to that opportunity.
Yeah.
To continue with this discussion, Woodman663 said, I would say make sure you either end the game on your swing round or have an impenetrable home system and or have some secret objectives on hand that can be scored even if the table turns against you. This is just a great point. This is sort of what we brought up earlier, saying obviously it is best if your swing round is the one that finishes the game.
Right.
And that's why we did that. This is like the linchpin of our whole episode was, if you had to take your swing round earlier because you just had to, because that's the timing of it,
right?
That's why you needed to. It's all of these things: defend your home system, get those secret objectives, have a plan in place to hold on despite having too early of a swing round. Skradkrk says, if they see you are hoarding trade goods, planets, action cards, and have the Imperial strategy card, plus a few unclaimed secrets and easy public objectives, then you have to ensure one thing, and I don't recall you mentioning it: control your home system planets. Again, harping on all these things that we decided we needed to just make an entire episode. Basically, you all wrote this episode, and we just elaborated on your points.
Yeah, so let's just give like special thanks
these
to
are all the
literally
shout-outs.
Everybody that gave us like errata. For this episode in particular was very much influenced by the response that we got from the audience. Very much
absolutely. So thank you all. Such good points in a discussion that I think has even more nuance than like we are giving it credit for right now. Like that, this is, to me, this is like the magic of TI. What we're describing right now is this weird balance of like, don't get too far ahead, but don't get too far behind.
Right.
And if you get behind, what do you do? If you get ahead, what do you do? Like, nothing is ever guaranteed to you in TI. And that's why I don't like it when this all started off with me not wanting people to say, well, I'm out of the game, it's over.
Right.
There are no guarantees.
There's so much random
You're
swerving.
way ahead, there are no guarantees.
Right.
Nobody has that because TI is there's too many fluctuations.
Right.
So you got to prepare for every possible scenario.
It's like as chaotic as real life. It's literally like chaos theory, like, butterfly flaps its wings in Asia and you win.
Right.
As Sardak Noor.
It's so funny to me that someone can fall behind.
Butterfly win is Sardak Noor.
It's really funny to me that somebody can fall behind and be like, well, end of the game right there.
Right.
But everyone is also willing to admit that when you get ahead, you could totally get screwed over and not win.
Yeah. So
like those two things are on the same spectrum.
Right.
And they're in the same conversation. And that's why this episode exists, is because they're really the same problem, which is anything could happen and you just need to be ready to deal with what happens.
Right. I really like episodes like the one that we just did, actually, because I really enjoy the fact that so much of this show is about the response.
Absolutely.
To like, we'll say some stuff, you'll say some stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this show is so much a conversation.
Yeah.
And that sometimes we put an idea out there and we realize like, oh,
this is bigger than we realized.
Right. This is bigger than we thought. And now we kind of need to talk about this other thing because of the response that we're getting. It's great. This show rules. This is the best show.
Yeah. So because the show rules.
This show rules, and don't listen to Marin. Don't listen to Comedy Bing Bong. Don't listen to what do normal people listen to?
I listen to 538 Politics.
Don't listen
podcast.
to that.
Yeah,
don't listen to Radio Lab.
Ew.
Don't listen to that one. Don't listen to The Moth.
There is only Space Cats Peace Turtles.
Only Space Cats. Not Shut Up and Sit Down Pod. Only Space Cats.
Yeah, they don't even talk about the Twilight Imperium game often.
No, they don't. No Dice Tower. Only Space Cats. No. What else?
You're running out of steam. Do you listen to any other podcasts?
No, My Brother and Me. Only Space Cats. No Adventure Zone. Only Space Cats.
No, they're too much fun. Right. As we already talked about, you need this serious.
No
discussion.
Earwolf podcasts in general.
I'm done with this.
Only
bit.
Space Cats.
Can we tell them about where they can follow us?
You can go to Twitter for game updates and announcements. Our Twitter is Space Cats Pod. Facebook for announcements and questions is good. We have one. Space Cats Beast Turtles is the name of the show, you dingus. Reddit Twilight Imperium. You can go there to see our weekly posts about each episode, and that's where you can discuss stuff. That's where
you know what? It's not just our posts there either. There's a ton of posts on Reddit.
There's lots of great stuff there,
and everyone should keep up the discussions on all those posts.
And people should be putting maps into the cartographer.
Yes.
We keep harping on that.
I've seen it happening too. It's been great. It's been awesome to watch a bunch more maps hitting it. Keep doing it and keep adding them to the Cartotech.
Cartographer.
Whatever.
You can go to our Board Game Geek Guild to see what RoboFish is thinking about.
We had more submissions this week from the people are returning to Board Game Geek because we're harping it up a little bit.
Good.
The calendar is still totally wrong. Whatever.
Right.
I don't care.
You can email us at spacecatspeaceturtles@gmail.com, and that's where we like to get our This Imperium Life submissions, Play of the Week submissions, which we don't have one of those yet.
You're going to do the rest of this rundown while I get one.
Oh, okay. Well, please go back to the rundown so I can see it.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I see. What's going to happen now? Okay, so you can check out our Patreon to contribute to the show. You bought us these mics that we're using right now. Thank you so much. And the recorder and all of our new gear that we're finally using.
And I want to say this much. It's going to be hugely... this new gear that we got is for Gen Con. It's not just like, obviously we want to make the podcast sound better, but we got stuff that's way more mobile, and we're hoping it makes a huge impact on what we're able to do at Gen Con. So we're excited for that.
Yeah, it's super awesome. Thanks everybody for keeping that going. And again, we just want to keep putting it out there. If you have been on the fence about supporting the show and you're like, that's not really something I do, but maybe you'd be down to do a one-time donation to the show, we would encourage you that this would be the time to do that. If you were only ever going to hop on for a month, this is the month to do it.
This is the week to do it.
We will remind everyone, we will be like, hey, if you were just hopping on because you wanted to support us for Gen Con, we will let you know. Like,
it basically activates at the first of the month, and so it doesn't actually drop to us until after the first or second or whatever of the month. So we'll let you know when that's happened, and then you can pull your submission. We get it. We understand that not everybody wants to do this month to month, and we respect and understand that.
Right. Though I want to throw this out there, after Gen Con, we are going to be retooling the Patreon because we have goals for after Gen Con.
Right.
It's not like the show's going to end after that. We've got other things that we're going to do. So, stay tuned for that as well. You can hit up our Discord for fun conversations, really solid memes. There was a lot of really good swinging memes. If you know what I'm talking about, wink, swinging.
Man, there were good ones. He's right. There were really good ones this week.
Shout out to Arch Thumb of Meantown.
And Bobson Dugnut does all the
Dugnut.
Bobson Dugnut does the crazy Photoshop stuff.
And you can go there for Discord to I'm really goofing up the rundown today. Patreon benefits, you get those there as well. Please rate us on your podcast app of choice, especially Apple Podcast / iTunes. And then, now here's my time. Hello, I am Hunter Donaldson. I've been one part of the show that you've been listening to, but I'm also a stand-up comedian. And I have a show that was just written about in the Oregonian. If you Google my name and Oregonian, you will see that a very wonderful writer who definitely does not listen to the show, his name is Mike Acker, interviewed myself and my co-producers of a show that I run called Comedy Party House Show Comedy. And this is a show that I run in a backyard. And it's lots of stand-up comedy, lots of the best stand-ups in Portland. Portland is a particularly very good city for stand-up comedy, and I am very, very blessed to be here, and we were just so excited to get in the paper. I mean, we're in a physical paper, and then also it's online. But anyways, the next show for that will be July 28th. It will be this Saturday, in fact. That's what it is. And it's going to start at like 8 p.m., and it is in a backyard, and this is the address, 6346 North Maryland Avenue. Please come out. Let me know that you're a Space Cats fan. It is going to be a great time. There is... it's 21 and up, which actually I should say that. I probably have never mentioned that, but I probably should have been saying important. That all along. It is a 21 and up show, sadly, but there's going to be food, there's going to be drinks. I will be there doing comedy, and please come and say, hey, I listen to the show, and and then I'll get you free drinks.
This month is really fun. I want to bring it up because I don't know, it hasn't been talked about that much. I don't know, Hunter maybe doesn't want me to bring it up, but the comedy competition happened. Hunter did well. He didn't win. It's a huge competition.
It's a huge
competition. But this month on their show, they have the person that won headline. It's a huge deal.
We have the newly crowned Portland's funniest person, Alex Falcone.
Yep.
Will be on the show. He will be probably closing out the night, unless we get some crazy drop in that's even bigger deal than he is. But yeah,
the point being, it is incredibly good comedy. It's not really amateurs. It's people that are some of the funniest people.
Oh, these are. I mean, you're gonna see a lot of people that are very talented and have yet to be discovered. But also, I mean, there's people that I run with that are just about to break type level of comedy.
Right.
Actually, I'm going to throw this out there randomly. If you want to check out another show, I have been co-hosting a show actually with Alex Falcone lately. I don't know if I'm going to be doing it permanently, but Earthquake Hurricane on Thursday. That show happens at 8 o'clock, and that is at Ford Food and Drink in Portland as well. So yeah, if you want to if your Thursdays are more open than your Saturdays, come out and check it out, because you'll see myself, you'll see
Portland's funniest
person. You'll see second place as well. You'll see a lot of really good comedy.
Yeah. Hey, I want to thank some Patreoners, some patrons.
Do it.
I want to thank the Mahat Maniac Jesper Person. I want to thank Ambrose the Vile, and I want to thank Alex Diaz. Alex. Thanks, Alex.
Not that Alex, though.
Not that Alex. Not the Alex we always have. No, screw him. We don't thank him this week. We thank this other new Alex.
Let's do the play of the week.
Okay, this play of the week is given to us by Jim Howes. 4-player game. Yes, I know you hate this. And I chose Barony. When my closer neighbor revealed that he was Arborek, I started licking my lips. My other neighbor was Hakan, with Creus rounding out the table. I got Gravity Drive quick and sent a Dreadnought out to claim Saudar, our equidistant system that was adjacent to Mechatol. He didn't like this at all, and I extended an Olive Branch by leaving it undefended on turn 2. When he moved in to claim it, I played Parlay and left his infantry stranded in space. Of course, he still got to build at the end of the action and threw down a Dreadnought to ward me off. Turn 3, he lands on Saudor, and I offer him a deal. I'll let you keep that silly little planet, but you need to pay tribute to the barony. He seems to think his 4 Latani 2 and PDS will be enough, and gives me the cold shoulder. When Warfare is played, I use the secondary to build my flagship, which cancels Magen, and then repeat my offer. Still no response. Stupid plants. I move in. His paltry fleet puts up a good fight, but only takes out a couple fighters. And then I decimate the planet with 5 bombardment rolls from my flagship, a dreadnought, and plasma scoring. Only a single plant person survives, and he is quickly dispatched by the invasion force. To add insult to injury, none of them successfully respawn at his home planet. My aggression is further rewarded when the next public objective is revealed. Have ships in 2 systems adjacent to Mechatol. So as you can imagine, there's some bad blood heading into the agenda phase. Fortunately, I am the speaker and I reveal the first agenda, which I placed on the top of the deck. I forget the name, but it's the one where infantry and fighters now cost 1 per resource instead of 2 per resource. Arborek starts begging for a veto or anything to help him out of this, and the ghosts approach him with an offer to assassinate my representative. He coughs up some precious trade goods, and the kill-for-hire plot is carried out. The barony are above such despicable intrigue. I casually inform the table that I wasn't planning to vote in this one anyway, as I drop an Imperial Rider on against. The law is rejected, and the Arborek barely avoid getting kneecapped while giving a victory point to their hated rival.
It's a pretty good example of what we were talking about with the barony flagship.
Exactly.
Bombarded.
It's almost as if we meant to do that. We definitely did not.
We didn't. We did not.
But boy, is that...
We didn't even notice until we were reading it that it was
that was exactly
the
scenario we brought
discussing.
Up. Yeah. So that being said, send us more plays of the week. We had kind of a slow leak. We're running out. So please send us more plays of the week.
Send us those juicy plays, please.
Yeah. Give us, gimme. And that's it. That's how we end the note. That's how we end the podcast. Is give us some more juicy plays of the week.
Okay.
All right.
I love you.
Oh, Hunter.
I wasn't talking.
That's
to you.
nice.
I wasn't talking to you.
I know. It's still nice.
I was talking to.
Do you think they love you back?
I wasn't talking to all of them.
Which one were you talking to?
Steve.
I do love Steve.
Steve, I love you.
Thank you for listening to Space Cat's Peace Turtles. And thanks to Ben Prunty for the use of his music. You can find more at benpruntymusic.com and benprunty.bandcamp.com. Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.